Welcome to this week's episode of the Scopify Insight Show. This week I'm joined by Anita Toth. She has a background in qualitative research. Now she's focused on helping companies solve the customer churn problem. Listen to this episode to hear her perspective on both sides of the table, from being a purchasing customer to becoming a churn consultant to B2B SaaS companies. Hey Anita.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. There you are.
I was just looking up LinkedIn. I typed in your name and I was typing in podcasts. And sorry, I don't want to be a creeper. I just had to do my research before I talk to you.
It's posted.
I'm trying to be doing my due diligence before I have you on the show.
Yeah, no, that's why it's there. I post them so that people can get to know who I am, and not just always tie you into that box of. I'll tell you. I don't even know how many podcasts I've done now. I'm somebody who can talk to anyone, but I have a hell of a time picking up the phone to call because I have no idea of those verbal, those nonverbal cues. And so I can't tell, should I change how I'm saying things? Should I, it really creates an anxiety. And so I don't like to do it. Whereas I'll take one of these calls any day on Zoom, because I can see the other person and then I can judge from their expressions. Am I on track or not? Whatever. Yeah. You know what I'll tell you right now, the longer you do it, the less you tend to care.
The first time, oh my God, the first one was horrible.
Right.
Lots of editing. I use Audacity for all the editing, so.
Okay. Yeah, but now I hear you twice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not going to work.
There. Well, now you're muted. It's good.
I can still hear me.
Can you? Just take it off. Don't worry about it. I'm getting used to your little purple N.
Okay, now this is what I look like.
What? No, it's horrible. That's what I was saying. I'm used to your little purple N now.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of my own voice.
Oh, what?
It's taken me a while to get used to the podcasting.
Right.
Hearing myself talk.
Yeah, my voice is nasally.
Sure. So I hear that you were a research coordinator at McMaster.
Yeah, I was. So McMaster is a university just outside Toronto, Canada. And I was there in many different capacities in research over the years. When I was a master's student there, I was a teaching assistant and also participated in my own research work during my master's. And then after I graduated, the day after, I got another job in the university as a research coordinator and did that for 14 years. Specifically, we were focused on what's called environment and health. So it's really, to me, really fascinating, cool stuff to see how our built environments affect our health. So even small things like, are there sidewalks in your area, or are you having to walk on the road where you might not feel as safe? And how do constructions like that affect your health?
So now you're working on customer churn. So that's your specialty, right? So you have a passion for customer service. So that's quite different, right, than being in the research coordinator at a university. So
absolutely,
how did that all come about? Did you have a background in software sales or customer service?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, not at all. And there is a difference.
Yeah.
Customer service is often now called customer support. That's where you're having problems and you reach out and they help you with that issue. Customer experience, again, is that whole journey from marketing to sales to when you're a customer. So it's much more broad and has to do with the customer journey as well, maps onto customer experience. But how are you experiencing the product, the service, the marketing, the relationships, the communications, all of those things combined?
Yeah, we're looking at the big picture rather than just one thing.
Right.
Yeah, that does make sense. It's easy to confuse the terms though, right? Because they all use the word customer this, customer that.
Yeah.
So many terms, but they all go together in the end. They all they're all full circle. They're all one package. Customer experience, right?
Customer experience.
Yeah. And the main goal, I guess, is to reduce customers from leaving.
Yep.
to get rid of that, to retain the customers.
Yep. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you how the story goes. So, 14 years there as a research coordinator and at McMaster University. Really enjoyed what I was doing, but the funding environment changed. So, for any of you who have ever tried to get funding in your life, you know how challenging it can be when the purse strings tighten. In other words, there's fewer funding dollars and more competitors. And we used to get about 30% of our proposals funded. By the time I left 14 years later, it was around 2.5 to 3%. So it was a significant drop in the number of funded proposals. And what happened is, of course, well, you can't keep supporting all of this staff. So I was laid off, and I wasn't really surprised. And I'll tell you, secretly, I was actually relieved because the university was a wonderful place to work, but not for someone like myself who likes to push boundaries and try to, break new ground. Universities are
it's a big institution, right? It's different than being an entrepreneur. There's probably like a lot of overhead, right? Working at a university, I imagine.
It's not that. It's just how many hoops you have to jump through to get anything done. And universities, bear in mind, like their business model has been around for centuries. They do not move quickly, despite all their talk about innovation and all of this. Particularly McMaster, that was one of its focuses. Yes, highly innovative if you were in health sciences or engineering. Yeah. But the rest of the university, it was like it was 100 years ago. So when they laid me off, I was like, all right, this is actually a good thing because I always had side hustles. And those side hustles really allowed me in a low risk way to start developing some of the skills that I would eventually need to use once I started launching my businesses. So what happened was I was laid off. I didn't know what business I wanted. The side hustle that I was really involved in at the time was selling honey, because my friend is a beekeeper and he's a farmer, and he loved to be on the farm. He loved to work with the bees. He hated selling the honey. Meanwhile, I love selling the honey, could quite do with never hanging out with the bees on the farm. But it was his business and he didn't want to grow it bigger. So I had to, pivot and think, well, what could I do? And I came across something around lead generation and ranking websites and then selling the leads. I'd never done anything like this before. I had no idea, if I'd like it or not. So I bought a course on how to do this. And 4 months in, I was surprised at how good I was at it, but I hated doing it. Like absolutely just despised it.
So was it the course that you hated?
What? No, I hated building the websites. I just hated this business, even though I was making good money at it. It was just not. And the reason is, Natalie, I'm not a designer. Okay. Like I draw stick figures. If you ask me to create something creative, like I think a 3-year-old can do a better job. I know they can do a better job than I can. And so it was too much of a challenge with wireframing the pages, and I just didn't like it. So long story short, sold that at the 6-month mark. And then jumped into being a consultant and running Facebook ads for dentists.
Wow.
And like quite a pivot. I loved Facebook ads, but this is how old school we were, or how long ago this was. Facebook video ads were just starting, and we were still using Power Editor. It was like a long time ago now, many years ago. And loved the pace, loved learning about marketing, loved how tactical it was. But it was too fast changing. And I felt like you no sooner figured out what worked, and then Facebook would change something, and then you were struggling again to come up with, well, what will work now. And in the beginning, it was exciting, but it became tiresome. So I got out of that business, closed that one down, decided to do a digital marketing agency, did that for a while. That wasn't a big thing. And then this is how I started to pivot to where I am today. And that is, my friend has an AI platform. And someone else who I was partnering with at the time with digital marketing, he and I both have backgrounds in qualitative research methods. He is a PhD. I have a master's. He calls himself a survey sensei. So that's his gig. He loves surveys, and I love customer interviews. So we partnered, and we were going to build our own SaaS, which did surveys and interviews together on her AI platform. And that's how I started to learn about churn, which I had heard about, but I didn't understand what it was and why it was important. So churn is the flip side of customer retention, is when customers leave your business. And for SaaS business, or software as a service businesses that rely on a monthly subscription, this becomes a really key metric, because their profits are very much tied to their churn rates. If 50% of their customers are leaving every 6 months, it makes it hard to grow and scale the business profitably. And this digital marketing thing wasn't working. We tried, we were building the product on her AI platform. It didn't really go anywhere. We had different visions on what we wanted for that particular piece of software. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to just take my research skills from all those years ago and start helping SaaS companies with this real problem called churn.
Wow, that's such a cool story. So that layoff from McMaster was actually a blessing in disguise.
Oh, for sure.
Like, it sounds like you met so many interesting people, you made connections along the way. And the way you started out, like you say, you took that course, and then you worked that first job. You didn't really like it, but look at how much you've grown from then. So
Right.
that's awesome. Like, I've also been laid off too from previous jobs, so I understand where you're coming from. But sometimes it is good, right? It's sometimes you need to be pushed in like a different direction to grow as a person, as a business person, entrepreneur.
Right. And the side hustles weren't enough. And you're so right, Natalie. Like, I didn't realize they call them golden handcuffs. I was paid very well for what I did at the university because you needed a master's degree for the job, which meant that there weren't tons of applicants, and you had to have knowledge, expertise in that particular field, which again, the pool is really small. So I enjoyed what I did, but it was getting to the point I had these golden handcuffs, which essentially meant that I couldn't justify leaving the university when I was being paid so well for what I did, even though I was miserable, because these side hustles weren't going to pay me enough. Yep. So I stayed, and I stayed for probably 4 years longer than I should have. And gratefully, you're right. Once my actual layoff date came, I was quite relieved to finally have been shoved out the door.
I can see how it could be hard to give that up. You had job security, you had pretty much everything. It can be hard to go from that, like from such a safe job, to something that's more risky, something that's kind of more unknown. If a side hustle, it's hard to know, is it going to become profitable? Those are always questions you ask yourself. That's the main issue.
Right. And that was the problem. So my biggest side hustle was that honey business of my friends, and I knew he did not want to grow the business. So why would I leave my job where I'm being paid very well for a side hustle where I'd just be paid like a few $100 extra a month? Like, I think at the time, the max I was making was $600-700 a month. Well, you can't live on that. No. And again, it was his business. So being fully shoved out the door, and I'm grateful. It was just one of these online courses that, there's tons of them, how to, become an X. I'll show you step by step how to do it. That's what the business was. And I'm grateful. Like they did exactly what they promised, which I'm so fortunate for. But I've learned a lot about who I am and what's important to me, what my values are, and growing that. And it's the same with sales, right?
Exactly. And it sounds like you were your own self-teacher, right? You're more self-taught, right?
I am
as a business person. So
I am.
That's the most important, is learning from real life, learning from being on the job. Right? Rather than just learning from books or learning, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And making a lot of those mistakes. Like, I'm so embarrassed sometimes when I go back and
don't be
at my early prospecting efforts, which were like the LinkedIn messages I get today, where you connect with the person and then they just whack you right away with like their sales pitch. They don't even get to know you. And I did that. Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
Well, I used to do that too when I started out. I think everybody does that. Like people, they don't understand sales, right? When they start out, they think, you're supposed to just tell them about the product immediately, shove it in their face, and then pray that there's something good come out of it. But that's not how it works.
No, it doesn't work that way at all. But like, it's so funny because that was several years ago. And occasionally some of these people that I sent those messages to, because you can see your whole chat history, right, on LinkedIn.
And then you look back and you're like, what? Why did I say that? Yeah, I do that all the time. I always go back on things.
Oh, it's so cringy, so cringy. But anyway, I've had fun learning about the proper way to sell. And it's not that way. It's not like, it's just like I've met so many realtors, mostly realtors, that you just get introduced, this is when we could meet people face to face, shake their hand. And next thing you know, like you got a business card in it. They didn't ask if you're looking to sell. Do you even own a house?
They just snuck it in there.
It's horrible. What do you think I'm going to do with that business card? You think I'm going to keep it and call the guy?
I've had people do that to me before too.
Yeah, but that's what I was doing digitally. And I didn't realize it until I started, looking at, well, what types of outreach do I respond to? And it's certainly not those. And then starting to learn more about the psychology of selling and what's important to us. And there's all different things like that it started really getting me interested in creating relationships with people first, besides just coming and, trying to shove my product.
Especially since your specialty is like customer success. So you look at things from the aspect of a customer, right? So I imagine you've been on both sides of the table, right? From being a purchasing customer to actually providing the customer service, right? To prevent the customer churn.
Right. Well, I actually don't provide the customer service. Who I work with are customer success teams.
Oh, okay.
So they provide the support and the service. But the customer success teams that I work with, what we end up doing is looking deeper into what the customers want, what they desire, and what outcomes they're looking to achieve. So what are the goals that they want with purchasing that particular product or purchasing that particular service or software? And so that's what I do, is I take this skill around customer interviews and use it to help keep customers longer. So asking questions about the onboarding process, right? Like, we know that a lot, it's just think back. I'm sure like anybody who's listening to this podcast has at least one story where you purchased an app or downloaded, even if it's free, downloaded an app, bought a piece of software, you're excited to use it, you get into it, and then you're like, well, what am I supposed to do here? Like,
or the features are missing, and then they're like, oh, you have to upgrade to this amount to get this feature. And then I've had to deal with that. Oh my God, so many times. Even this morning, I went on this website. I was trying to edit one of the podcast videos. So I was trying to find all these, all these companies. They say, oh, we have the best product for editing podcasts. And then I made an account on a couple of them and it's horrible. Like you have to the features aren't even on there. It's like, do they care about the customers? I don't know. Like,
I think they do.
Features.
I think what it is often is they're so involved in building the product and they just tend to see from their perspective. And this is why it becomes very key to understand the customer's perspective. That's why, the more that you can understand who your customers are, what they want, what they expect, because customer expectations are really rising. There's so much competition out there.
Especially with B2B, right? Like the customers in B2B, they have high standards. They're more educated on the product that they're looking for, right? And they need it for their companies. So it's a different type of customer as well. Like in comparison to, let's say, like B2C, for example. Like I worked in retail for 10 years, right, before getting into this whole B2B thing. So I have quite a bit of customer experience. So I see it from their side too. But yeah, B2B is a way different type of customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's who I work primarily with, but getting them to get into the heads of the customers, getting into their thoughts. How are they feeling as like you did? I'm sure when you couldn't find the features you wanted after being sold on the website and being told I can do all these things, you get into the product and you're like, well, where is this stuff?
Yeah, I was frustrated. I got off the website. I deleted my account.
There you go. So whether if you paid, you just became a churned customer, which is going to obviously affect their revenue. But even as a free user now, you would never go and upgrade to a paid.
No, go to a competitor, right? I I'll look somewhere else because this place isn't delivering what I want.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe that's more of a B2C issue, but it goes for any type of customer, right?
I think it's almost anywhere. Again, if your marketing is saying one thing, and then now your sales and marketing, depending on the product, might be, very, very close together for, really big B2B sales. You might have a bigger separation between marketing and sales, might take a bigger role. But the whole point is there has to be alignment between marketing, sales, and then your customer experience. Because if they tell you like the gum even that you're buying is supposed to be, my daughter did this the other day. She bought a sour candy. That's what it said on the package. She pops it in her mouth and I don't know where the sour is, but even myself who doesn't like sour stuff, I was like, there's nothing sour about this. Do you think she's going to buy it again? No.
So the marketing was misleading.
It was. And that's just like a simple like dollar candy. Well, what's it like when you're talking the product is, $10, $100, $500, $1,000, $20,000. You've got to have that alignment. How do you find that alignment? Well, you got to speak with your customers. You got to speak to them once they're onboarded. So your onboarding right there was very, very quick into the product, but even a little guide to show you around those quick wins so that you could start accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish, which was editing your podcast. What would be one of the first steps? Maybe you have to upload it. Okay. What would be step number 2? Go here, go here, go here. Like those small things make a massive difference. It's not that customers, aren't interested or that businesses aren't interested in serving their customers. They are. They often just don't really have an idea of how to make that happen in a way.
They go about it the wrong way. I find they don't know, they don't see it from the customer side.
Right. Just like you and I, we both agreed that in our early days with sending those LinkedIn messages, we were doing that awful kind of spammy in your face. Like we made those mistakes. And for a lot of these companies, even really big companies that have been around for a while, they either get complacent and because this is how we've always done it, or with the new companies, just like when I was first learning how to reach out and make connections and build relationships on LinkedIn, I didn't know either. So I find that it's right across the board. There's so much value in speaking with your customers. And when I mean speaking, I mean literal speaking. Get them on the phone, get them on a Zoom call, talk to them. Surveys are great, but they're not going to give you the depth of information that you need.
Yeah, treat them like a person, not just a consumer of your product or somebody that's paying. Don't look at them just as a dollar sign, basically.
Right. Right. You've got it. And that's sometimes forgotten. I know it sounds silly, but it is. When you're looking at daily active users and some of these other metrics, the people become just numbers. Literally.
Well, I mean, if the company's concerned about revenue and growth, then I guess that happens. That's pretty common, right? They lose touch.
They do. And sometimes that's right from the beginning. Sometimes they lapse into that over time, and there's many reasons why. And it doesn't really matter why. The biggest thing to me is that it's no different with sales. You got to develop an understanding of what their challenges are from their perspective.
Yeah, goes hand in hand.
It does.
So you do talk about like different aspects of churn. What are some situations where you've seen like some examples of customers turning away from companies? What happens if the churn is beyond the control of the company? Like, let's say the customer's struggling with the budget, so they can't hold on to that subscription anymore. They have to cancel. Or what happens if the customer wants a feature that you can't offer them? Could you work around it? Or even just simple problems like, how about, let's say their credit card was failing to work on the website, so they just got turned off. Like, are those some common churn issues?
Those are all common. The website one, though, isn't, because the technical definition of churn is someone is already paid. So they're already a customer.
Okay. Yeah.
There certainly is what's called involuntary churn or delinquent churn, and that is through failed credit card payments once you're a customer. And sometimes people have their credit cards fail for whatever reasons, like sometimes they've expired and they haven't updated their information. But once they go, it's hard to get them back, even in that case, even if they were interested in keeping the product. So the biggest things, maybe I'll talk about it this way. The biggest areas where people tend to become the most unhappy was, like with your experience, onboarding. They've just purchased a new piece of software, a new product, whatever. Like I said, even right down to those candies. So there is going from, my daughter ripping open the bag to popping it in her mouth and realizing, I'm not interested in this because it's not what it said on the package. So that initial experience as a customer, once you've bought, that onboarding process, however long that may be, from seconds to months, is one of the biggest places where people become frustrated, they become unhappy, and that's when they're likely to turn and walk away. The second place is with customer support. So and again, it might be like you said, maybe a feature isn't available. Maybe that feature will never be available. Yeah. Maybe it's not on the product roadmap, or it's so far down the road that they can't use it, use the product because it's not right for them. Yeah. You actually want people who are not a good fit for your business to leave. It's actually better for both parties. So this again comes back to that marketing piece and sales, because sometimes sales promises a bunch of things that aren't, that's not reality, or the marketing does that same thing. But sometimes they're just not a good fit. And rather than having someone who gets really frustrated, like I just had this happen with a company where I paid money. I went on their mid-tier plan, and it took me 10 days to onboard. The worst part about it is it took 24 to 48 hours to receive an email response every time I had a question. Wow. And by the 10th day, I was not impressed. And I thought, okay, I'm really not happy here, but let's see now that I have everything set up. So I got everything set up and it's starting to run, and I realized I hate this software. I hate it. And so sure enough, right before my monthly payment came due, I churned. I, sent them a message and said, delete my account. And I have such a poor experience with that company. Now, what happened was I'm not the right customer for them. My business is too small. I never should have even, tried that product. So I was taking up all those minutes in customer service, which by the time the 10 days rolled around with how many email back and forths we had, let's say they took 40 minutes with me in total over that time. I was not a good fit customer to begin with.
And yeah, you weren't in their ideal customer base, probably. No, yeah, bad match. Yeah,
bad match. So if I had stayed, I would have eaten more of their customer, more of the customer support time. The point is, when someone is a bad fit, they tend to reach out to support a lot more frequently. They tend to escalate issues, which I had to. I had to escalate an issue to the manager level. Now, she got involved and I was taking up her time. The point is, like a bad fitting customer, it's better to either let them know that maybe they're not going to be a good fit, even if it means letting them go. You would rather have that and have them leave with at least a sort of neutral view of your company versus absolutely hating your company.
Yeah. I mean, like there's only so much you can do, right, to keep a customer staying with a company if it's not, if your product's not going to work for them. Like you don't want to be chasing them down or force them to stay or lock them down into like a subscription that they can't get out of. Seems like a lot of companies do that though. Like, I don't know. I see like a lot of cell phone companies, they like to lock people down into a subscription and they can't get out of it, or a lot of gyms. Like I see that all the time and it's just not fair. I don't know why they force people to stay, and then they charge a cancellation fee, and it's even worse. It makes the customer even more frustrated.
So with the cell phone companies, it's very, I can tell you why they do that. And that's because in order to enter the cell phone market as a provider, the costs are so high. You have to be a really big company with a lot of money to enter that marketplace. So they pretty much can do what they want. There's government regulations, but if they want to lock you into contracts and they want to charge different types of fees, until there's some government regulations coming in stopping that, they can do it because the barrier to entry is so high.
So they can get away with it. It's beneficial for them as a company, as a cell phone service, but it's not really good for the customer, is it? Like to make them cover their butts, basically.
Yeah, you're right. And the other industry that's like that is banking. You can't just, like you and I can't decide today we want to just go open a bank.
No.
Right? So that's why you get a lot of these practices where people are locked into contracts, where people are very unhappy with a lot of the services because the barrier to entry is so high. There's so few players in the market. They pretty much decide what they want to do and how they want to do it.
Yeah, so they can kind of own that market sort of. Yeah, because they're like one of the bigger, like Rogers or Bell, or even with gym memberships, same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is unfair, but I guess they can do it.
They often can. So these are some of the things that you look at, and the bigger thing is deciding as a consumer. Like for me now, my values have to align with the companies that I'm purchasing from. It's not just anymore about where can I find the cheapest blank to do blank. I want to know now that there's an alignment in values. I want to know, like, there was one company, I absolutely adored them for what they did. And I don't know if they've changed or not, but I had an online course and they were really about the success. Their platform was not just a platform for people who wanted to run online courses. Their platform was there to make course creators successful. Do you hear the difference?
Mm-hmm.
And when I closed down the course, I've very rarely had this. I actually felt sad that I had to stop paying them, because they really made me feel that my success was genuinely their success as well. I didn't just feel like, here's your stuff. Oh yeah, look, we released a new feature, and then they just
like they actually cared about you. Yeah.
I never felt that. And to show even how great this company was, when the end of when I went through their cancellation process, and they did this correctly. If you have a company, even if you're just like a small company, find out why people are leaving. Ask them. So they had a cancellation survey, and I filled it out. And then they had asked if they could have a quick 15-minute call with me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't to try to win me back. It was try to find out a little more about why I left. What did I think of the company? What could they have done differently? And you're right. In this case, just like when a business closes down, I can't do anything about that if they were one of my customers. Mm-hmm. And in this case, my business model had changed. No matter what they could have done, I wasn't going to continue to buy their product. But they reached out. I had a 15-minute call with someone who just specialized in speaking with people who are canceling. And it was great. Again, it just showed me that they wanted to do better, and they cared. They genuinely cared.
Yeah, it was beyond their control, right? That you couldn't do it, but they were still able to get something positive out of it by getting your feedback so they could improve it for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the right way of going about it, especially if it's out of their control. Because I see that all the time, and it is something to think about as a business. Like, what happens if you can't control losing the customer? And it's unfortunate, but it happens, right?
Churn is inevitable. Your customers will leave. Now, some companies have very low churn rates just because of the nature of their business. Let's say they're very small; they only have a handful of clients at a time. You might be able to keep 100% for a certain length of time, but at some point, even then, customers will churn. I was speaking with a CFO of a company yesterday, and in his particular industry, 60% churn is very common. That's the average.
That's quite a high percentage.
Crazy high. Yeah, it's in the ticket event space.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, selling tickets for different events. And that's why he said 60% is the average churn.
I mean, I could see that though, people's plans change, right? Yeah. You can't really stop people from.
But it's not just that, is that how many people just come and try it out once and run their event, and then maybe they never run that event again.
That's true too. Yeah. Yeah, right? They go somewhere else or something. Or situation changes.
Yeah, you've got it. So it makes sense for that space because it's very transactional. Like, you sign up for that one event. Once that one event's done, if you don't have any more, you're not going to keep paying for the software. Mm-hmm. Right. So
anyway, yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating, but the biggest thing, this is where I plant my flag, and I'm a firm believer that a business's success will very much be determined by how well it understands what its customers want, need, and desire. What are the outcomes that they're seeking to achieve?
Yeah, they look at their goals, right? Their goals in the end. Yeah, rather than it's good to look at right now, focus on how you want to grow as a company, but you need to look further. You need to look in the future, right? Further down the road, what do you want for customers? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And also competitors. So how can a B2B software sales company overcome pressure from competitors, from customers going to competitors? How can they overcome that?
I think with any business, so it doesn't even have to be B2B SaaS companies, any business, and that is try to make your customer experience the best it can be. It's You're never going to hit it 100% of the time, but you want to have that alignment between marketing, sales, and customer support or customer success throughout the company. And then with the product itself, like, don't put in your advertising that you're a super sour candy and then, somebody buys it and you're not. Like, that's a really, small example, but even right up to big ones. How many times have I purchased from, well-known gurus? I've bought courses only to discover that the course isn't at all what they talked about.
Or webinars. Yeah. Like, I'll sign up for webinars. I signed up for a few of them. I went in there and then I sat there for an hour. And then by the time I was done, I was like, why did I sign up for this? Like, this has nothing to do with what they said it was about. I'm not even interested. It's trying to promote some other service that I don't even care about.
Right.
It was like a trick. It was like they're trying to trick people
to
buy their product. I thought it was about helping me. Like, I thought it was about helping me with prospecting, but it was all about promoting some other software. And I'm like, I don't need that right now. I mean, I work for a company that does this already. We're trying to solve the prospecting problem. I just wanted like a tips and tricks kind of thing. Like, I thought they're just trying to help people, but I mean, they are trying to help you, but then I guess the main goal is, sign up for their company.
Right. So that's
kind of sneaky, though. I find that kind of sneaky, in my opinion.
And you know what? That'll get them some short-term wins. But on the whole, people, I don't care who you are, people want to be treated with respect. And so at some point, even those people who choose to work with that company, at some point if that is how they're selling themselves underhandedly, then I can guarantee you they're also doing a heck of a lot of other stuff once you become a customer. And so that customer experience is that critical defining thing. And customer experience, surprisingly, is defined from marketing all the way till you no longer are a customer. It's
the whole customer life cycle, basically.
Right. And customer experience does encapsulate all of those things. So that's the best way that you can do it. There's no sort of tricks or tips to be better than your competitors. I really, as I see it in the SaaS world, because the bar to entry is so low in SaaS, you don't even have to know how to code. You don't even you can pretty much, start a SaaS company with just a little bit of knowledge and just a little bit of money. And
it's easy. It's not that complicated when you think of it.
No. And so what's happened is there's so many SaaS companies out there that
it's too many.
You just switch. I don't like this one. I'll just switch.
Too many options.
Yeah, so many options.
It's like Netflix when they give you like all these options of movies to watch, and then you sit there forever and you still can't pick one because you can switch. You can switch all the time.
Yeah. Well, the difference in SaaS, though, is that it's not the products and features that matter anymore. Like, because there's so many different companies you can easily switch to. The biggest thing is around customer experience. If you are treated well, you'll stay. If you're treated crappy, you'll stay. I have even stayed with companies where the product isn't that great. Maybe it doesn't have some of the features I want, but the customer experience has been so good for me. And I've really felt like they will grow to that point, and I'm willing to stay with them. So it's not even about a crappy product.
Yeah. It's about a relationship with the company. Yeah, exactly.
It is.
I mean, you've been with us since like the beginning, since we were like a baby company, right? Since like last year.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's because we're a good product, hopefully it's both, right? That we got good customer service too.
Right. I'll tell you why I stayed. It's the values are very much aligned. My values and Scopify's values are very much aligned in terms of the sales process. And that is rare. It's not the slimy, heavy-handed, forcing people to, hard pressure. You got to make a decision now. This discount will go away. You don't take it in the next 5 minutes. So if our values are aligned, and one of my core values is around customer experience, then it makes sense by extension that Scopify will have a similar emphasis and priority on customer experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all about building relationships, right? That's the problem we're trying to solve with our technology. I know trying to fix it with technology, but it's also a human to human thing.
It is.
That you need to solve. I mean, with customer service. And yeah, I mean, I have a huge passion for customer service because I worked in retail for so many years. So yeah, it's a huge thing for me. Mm-hmm. I guess it goes in any industry, really. Customer service really transferable. Really, what industry doesn't care about their customers? What industry doesn't need customer service? I can't think of any.
Well, but again, it's how they treat them. We talked about the telecom industry. They're not exactly known for great customer service.
Yeah, telemarketing. Yeah, they don't really care.
Telecom.
Oh, telecom. Okay.
Yeah, not telemarketing, telecom. So these are your cell phone companies, your cable companies, your all of that kind of stuff. Remember, the barrier to entry is extremely high there. So you have a small number of companies that talk about caring about their customers. But once you become a customer, it becomes very apparent that they're more concerned about their systems and processes, and you do become a number.
Okay, yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, I guess that might be one of the only industries that I can think of, really.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
It's been an interesting journey.
That's good.
Yeah, excited to see where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, I love getting to know our customers as well. Like, I know you're one of the original customers, so it's great to be able to talk to them, one-on-one, like we're talking today, and just kind of hear where they came from, how they discovered us, how they look at different things. So it's great to learn from them as well.
You got it. It's been fun. It's been fun. I'm actually starting to, now that I know exactly what I'm doing, what I'm offering, kind of like with Scopify. Like when I was speaking with Vic nearly a year ago, I think it was last November, the product was in essence the same, but yet very different. There was a lot of things that hadn't been figured out yet. And
you've grown with us as a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen our humble beginnings, and
Yeah.
It's great that you've stayed with us, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, because those values are aligned, the sales values, and that's what matters to me. I want to know that people are in market for what I'm selling. It's not a cheap thing I sell. And as time goes on, I'm going to rejig what I'm doing in terms of pricing and all of that. But I need to develop a relationship. It can't just be I speak to them once and then they're going to become a customer. Like, it doesn't work that way. That relationship's got to be there.
Yeah, you're like one of our most faithful customers, I would say. It's hard to find people like you. It's very tough. It's hard to find customers like you. I don't know too many.
They are out there. They are definitely out there.
Trying to find more Anitas.
Awesome. Love it.
Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Scopify Insight Show. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, feel free to hit like and share with your audiences. Feel free to give us a follow on our social media channels on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Also, feel free to give our website a visit at www.scopify.ai.